All right, so we're going to talk today about the question, should I force my kids to go to church? It's a question that, as a pastor, I get regularly enough. We have,
Are you
I
serious?
probably 3 times in the last week.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly where the question comes from, other than it's more often than not a parent that's uncertain of how to parent their kids. And so I don't want to condemn anyone, but at the same time, the answer to the question is yes. You force your kids to go to church because we we do we force our kids to do stuff all the time that's
Hmm.
good for them,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Right.
so from the time that they're born, we force them to eat when they don't want to eat. I mean,
Yep.
we do little games to make them eat to ensure that they eat because it's good for them. When they go to school, we make sure that they get their shots because it's good for them, that they go to school because it's good for them, that they go to bed, they wake up on time, they
They're
do.
not smart enough to know better.
Well, they're not supposed to be smart enough to know better. You're supposed to be smart enough to know better for them.
Right. And I don't want to sound harsh, but that's like saying, okay, you can stay up with ladies you want. You can go wherever you want. You don't have to eat your vegetables and you don't take your vitamins.
Yeah,
It's like, what?
yeah. It's
Here's Parent of the Year award, you know?
well, I had a guy quote Colossians 3:21 to me, and he said, "Well, my concern is the Bible tells us," and he didn't quote the verse because he didn't know the actual address, but he said the Bible tells us don't embitter our children, and I'm afraid I'm going to embitter my child if I force him to go to church, and then he's not going to want to go to church when he grows up. I said, well, he's not going to want to go to church when he grows up if he's not made to go to church when he's a child, because he's not going to have a relationship with God. Why would he go to church if he isn't familiar with church, right? Or at least have some foundation that you should establish in them. But I told him, I said, you've taken the verse though out of context. It's true, we shouldn't embitter our children, do the things that cause them to lose heart, which is the second half of that verse. We don't embitter your children so that they may not be discouraged, so that they don't lose heart. And so we don't degrade them and we don't beat them unnecessarily and we don't do things that are to their detriment for the sake of doing it, because these things embitter them. It causes them to be discouraged and think less of themselves. Church is never going to do that. Now, if you go to a church, I will say this: if you go to a church where your child feels discouraged, where you are feeling discouraged, where your child's getting beat up on more than he's being shown the love and the grace of God, or being bullied, because there's churches like that, sadly.
Right.
You find another church, but don't exclude him from church because you've had a bad experience. Or worse than that, you've heard of somebody that had a bad experience, and you want to make sure your child doesn't go through that experience.
Right.
Because the worst experience coming for a child that doesn't know Jesus.
Okay. So it's kind of like when the child comes home sick from school and then they go straight to video games. It's like, no, 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 no. You don't get to do that. You don't get to skip church and sleep in because you were out late on Saturday night. You don't get to skip church because most of the times you're skipping church for a selfish reason.
Yeah.
And that's not how we want to bring up our kids.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to train them in the way that they should go. This is what the Bible says in Proverbs 22:6. Train them, which means
Yeah.
discipline them, dedicate them to the Lord. And when you discipline them and train them, dedicating their life to the Lord, then you can expect blessing. I want to say something to you. This is the degree to which we should be committed to dedicating our children to the Lord, to be raising our kids, to training them up in the way that they should go. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4-9 reads like this. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. First off, somebody's going to say, well, he's talking about Israel. Well, let me tell you, when you accepted the blood of Jesus Christ, you fell under the same covenant that
Right.
Israel, you're grafted in according to the blessing of Abraham. And so it is talking to the believer, at least in principle. That you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. These words which I am commanding you today shall be on your heart. And so he said, this is what we should teach our kids, or this is what we should teach, to love God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength. This is what we're being commanded to do. You shall teach them diligently to your sons, and talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, when you rise up. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and you shall be as frontals on your forehead. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. And so what's it saying here? It's saying, listen, there's only a couple of times I expect you to tell your sons and daughters about Jesus. And that is when they're lying down and when they're not lying down. When they're in their house.
That's great.
Right?
Right.
So there's no time that we shouldn't be teaching our kids about God and how to love God.
Right.
And so this is wholly important in understanding that when we teach them to love God, in the second commandment to love people, embitterment is impossible. What you eyeballing me for, Jack Jr.?
Okay, let me bring Jack Jr. in this, because he was a person that we had to require to go to church. It wasn't an option. We made it clear. We sat him down, said church ain't an option. It's not a checklist. It ain't, I want to do this week, not next week. No, you do it like breathe. Okay, so when did you, oh yeah, it's a turkey wrap. When did you, at what age did you like want to go every week and never miss church? When did, because we, at some point we stopped forcing you to go to church, and you kind of did it on your own. You kind of wanted to go to church.
Let's say high school, like when I turned 14.
Yeah, that's about, that's all the development years. All the development years. We have to keep pushing until the car starts on its own.
Yeah.
Then we just let go and let it go. His love for Christ is deep, and I don't have to try and instill it in him.
I also helped my lady went there, so I mean.
Oh, yeah. His fiance goes there, so that helps. But the thing about it is that they do at a certain age get used to going to church and love going to church. They really, like when I became a Christian, okay, there were times I thought about not going to church as an adult because I was a baby Christian. I was right in the beginning. It just wasn't convenient, and I had something else in my head, whatever. But as my relationship with Christ grew deeper, I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Right.
I don't answer the phone. If my business associate calls me, I don't pick up. Yeah. Because that day is for Christ. That day is for church and nothing else. I don't book anything on Sundays. Don't call me on Sundays. Don't ask me to lift a couch on Sundays. Nothing. That's just the way I am now.
So let me tell you, I had a friend of mine tell me one time that you grow an appetite for what you eat. And as an example of that, they had heard that, and so they were going to test the theory, him and a couple of his buddies, and they decided that for a month straight they were going to have salads for lunch. And so none of them really preferred to have salad. It's just what they decided to do to test this theory, right? And so they went and they had a salad the first day, second day. But he said by the end of the month, man, he goes, we were done with salad. We didn't want salad. We just written salad completely out of our menu.
Right.
He said, but within 2 or 3 days, they were looking at each other and goes, hey man, y'all want to go grab a salad for lunch? Because you get an appetite for what you're used to eating. And the same thing is true in the spiritual realm. What you're used to consuming, you grow an appetite for, right?
Yo, absolutely. I mean, that's what we do is we're trying to start them in a relationship with Christ properly.
Yeah.
We encourage that. Once that grows, hands off, it's the power of God taking over.
Yeah.
And you yearn to be with those good people, and you feel good being around good people. Good people, being around good things is great.
Yeah.
Because you don't realize that all the time. Don't be in the bar. Don't be in the nightclub. Don't be at the racetrack. Be in church.
Well, let's be realistic. There are those that are made to go to church, that when they get old enough, 18 years old, they decide that they're not going back.
Oh, yeah.
My parents made me go, and I just didn't particularly care for it, so I'm not going. But we still have a promise. And that's because we train them up in the way that they should go, that they're going to come back to that which they've been trained to. And so you may not see immediate result of the discipline required of bringing them to church,
Right.
There will be a result. And if your concern is with eternity and not comfort, then you will look for whatever is necessary to ensure eternity in them versus their comfort.
That's great. I totally agree. And anybody who asks me that, it's like, you know, what there are others. I guarantee there's one other thing that the child is forced to do.
Yeah.
And it ain't more important than church.
Yeah.
Period.
That's right.
It ain't more important than church. So I agree with you. Yeah. And I thank you for bringing this topic up because it is important. And as an adult, let me tell you something. People who stop going to church for one reason or another, don't let a man or a woman or your disgruntledness or anything get between you and God. Realize when you go to church, it's a one-to-one relationship. Sure, we get to hear a teacher or a pastor speak to us at church, but it's still, you're going there for the biggest one of all. You're going there for God. Yeah. And realize, I mean, I'm telling you, if he had food for you every day, you'd show up faithfully. You'd be like, I'm here. Where's my food? All right, Pastor. Thank you very much for bringing that topic.
Right on.
Take care. Love you.